what if Trump just declared victory? We got rid of the Ayatollah. We killed 40 of the top people, pushing for nuclear weapons in Iran. We gave the Iranian people at least a shot. If Israel or somebody else wants to do boots on the ground at this point or help them out or give them guns, meaning the citizenry, great, we're out. We did our part. I mean, how can the United States cut its losses at this point?
Yeah, I think they should be looking for an exit path. Today, Bloomberg reported that in Doha, the Qataris and the Emiratis are looking to help Trump find an off-ramp out of this. I actually think the Iranians will continue to go because in Iranian discourse now, the belief of the regime is that that was the mistake they made at the end of the 12-day war, where they believed they had the missile advantage over Israel and they accepted a ceasefire. And therefore, Israel got emboldened to do its own attack and, of course, to draw the U.S. into a second operation against Iran. So the Iranians may calculate that they're going to just, fire everything they have or much of what they have of these different types of missiles, and they're now using the more advanced ones, even as interceptors, U.S. and Israeli interceptors are becoming depleted. They're going to fire everything they have so that they basically to try to ensure that there's not a future attack like this again. So again, there has to be hopefully an exit path. And it raises the question of, would Israel keep going if the U.S. pulls out? I don't think so. I think so much of the Israelis' freedom of action depends on their sense that the Americans will back them. So look, if I were to be asked what the end game of this war is, I think it will be a kind of a muddle where we definitely bruise the Iranians, and the Iranians will also be able to claim that they definitely held their own. And everyone claims a quote unquote victory. I really pray that what Secretary Hegseth and President Trump said about putting troops on the ground, potentially, quote unquote, if necessary, does not pan out. By the way, to really do regime change, that's what it would be required, is to put troops on the ground to kind of secure the country.
That's what all the military experts say.
Well, that's just a crazy thing to do. Not just in terms of for the strategic and military reasons we've been discussing so far, but just politically speaking. I mean, is the Republican Party politically suicidal to do something like that? Already, the Reuters Ipsos poll found that only 1 in 4 Americans supports this operation. That is only going to get worse with boots on the ground. Like, why? And especially because, voters, including myself, would have a just cause to say, hey, we thought we were voting for, quote, the peace ticket. We thought we were voting for the kind of new, more restrained Republican Party, not the one that puts us on a time travel machine back to 2003, including with 2003 style rhetoric about freedom in the Middle East. Oh, give me a break. Didn't we try all this?
The only way they make those polls go up, because we saw a difference this morning between a couple of polls in terms of the American people's support for what we're doing. The way they got a higher rating in the one poll in support of this was to say, do you support taking out the Iranian nukes with U.S. military power? And then you'll get a majority of Americans saying, yeah, actually, I do want that. Nobody wants Iran to have a nuke. But that actually hasn't been President Trump's main message, because he told us 7 months ago he obliterated them already. He's been reduced to arguing about what their ambitions are, and he didn't like the way they were negotiating at the table, which that whole negotiation to me, Sohrab, you tell me, but it seemed pretextual. Like, our demands were so extracting on the Iranians. It seemed like we knew there was no way they were going to, give us the promises we were demanding. And it seems like we'd already decided with Israel, we were moving military assets to the region as we were having the negotiations, that unless they just completely went belly up, we were going to do this. So I don't know. I mean, I just feel like we made our decision a while ago about what we were going to do. And so now what is going to happen? If President Trump does spend the next month there with troops on the ground, possibly with air power, now what? I mean, is there any chance we do get rid of enough of the regime that somehow the Iranian people get the Iran of 1978 delivered back to them, with the women without the hijabs and like girls prancing in the streets in like normal clothing and going to schools and, feeling free and looking Western? And a country that isn't like a hotbed of hatred toward America and terrorist acts in the Middle East?
Well, I mean, I should say the Iranian women have stopped in core urban areas. They've stopped wearing the hijab ever since the 2022 uprising, and that's a credit to their courage by basically defying the regime for so long that in certain places the regime feels like it can't enforce the hijab norms. In other places, they're so devout that they still wear the hijab no matter what. But to your larger question, look, I think what we're looking at, certainly the where the trends are heading, and I think where a lot of Israeli strategists would prefer, is a kind of Syrianization of Iran, where you have maybe a government that can only control the capital and certain outskirts of the capital. Then you maybe have ethnic strife to the northwest and to the south, and to the west, where the Kurds, the Azeris and the Arabs and Baluchis are. Then you have, potentially remnants of the regime, right? Not all of them are going to give up. Some of them are going to form the Shiite Liberation Front, whatever they're going to call it, the Party of God. And they're going to try to menace the newly established government that can only govern like around Tehran, the capital. So something like a combination of Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Where the old Afghan government that we tried to uphold for about 20 years, could only control Kabul and its environs. So something similar, but all of that, even that assumes a heavy degree of U.S. investment in reconstruction, security, et cetera, to try to hold that outcome up. If you really want a fully unified Iran to hold together, then you do need those like hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops to like build a new country. But I was pretty sure I didn't, vote for nation building. They might call it something else now.
If we do democracy building in Iran, I mean, there's going to be a full revolt here in the United States. Like, you're going to get massive amounts of registered Republicans not voting. I don't know that they're going to run to vote Democrat, but they're not going to vote because that building democracy. If we've learned anything from the past 20 years, we should have learned that we can't do that. And I realize Iran is not the same as Iraq. Everybody keeps lecturing us on how it's not the same. And I realize that's true. There is a desire for democratic rule, some form of it in Iran that didn't exist in Iraq. But I mean, is it large enough, Sohrab, that we actually have a shot of going over there and getting people, to have the democratic elections and to live free like a constitutional republic, like America? Is there a better shot at that than there was in Iraq?
There is a secular population. I'm not sure they're small d Democrats. I think from what I've learned about studying Iranian political history and political culture is that fundamentally it's an authoritarian culture. People will say that that's an unpopular thing to say on my part, or I'm being, not all, you can't just say that about a whole culture, but everything I've learned about Iranian political history tells me that Iran, in order to keep together, requires a strong central authority embodied in a kind of a person, a visible principle of unity, a living, breathing principle of unity. For most of its history, 2,500 years, 3,000 years, that's been a Shah or a king. The Islamic Republic essentially is in part a monarchy, except instead of a king, it has instead of someone who wears a crown, it's someone who wears a turban. And so, I think so. That's if you want to keep it together as a cohesive state. And then the question falls back to whom do we have who could serve that role, who's not part of the Islamic Republic, if the vision is really total regime change. And I can't think of someone. Maybe there was one the president had in mind, but we killed him.
Right. That's what he keeps saying. Think about this. In 2006, $20,000 equaled roughly 33 ounces of gold at spot price. Okay. $20,000 got you 33 ounces. At today's prices, those 33 ounces would be worth about $165,000. That would have been a very good investment. And that's why so many smart Americans do diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals. They're thinking about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. And it's also why you should consider buying gold from Birch Gold Group. For thousands of years, gold has been a store of wealth. And today, it is a crucial part of any balanced strategy. Even better, Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered retirement account in gold. All you have to do is text MK to the number 989898, and that will give you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation. It's just useful information from which you can make a decision. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold. Now that's peace of mind. Again, text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.